All right, welcome to today's webinar, the COVID-19 guidance from the EIC Apex COVID-19 Business Recovery Task Force for Business Continuity. My name is Colleen Miglio, and I am the Education and Certification Manager at EIC. Before the session begins, I would like to address a few logistical items. This presentation is being recorded and will run approximately 60 minutes, including question and answer time at the end, and will also be available on the EIC YouTube channel. All attendees today will receive their 1 hour of CE approximately 1 week after the webinar. Attendees can listen to the webinar through their computers or by dialing in using the number and passcode provided by the Zoom software. If you have questions, you do not need to wait until the end of the presentation. You can submit them. We encourage you to submit your questions using the Q&A box as seen on the screen. We will address as many questions as possible. We also welcome you to utilize the closed captioning function. Click on the CC button at the bottom of your screen and you will find a link to subtitles. And now I will hand it over to Events Industry Council CEO, Amy Calvert.
Thanks so much, Colleen. Welcome, everyone. We're so thrilled to have you today, and we are really so honored to have over 1,300 participants from over 31 countries. So a wonderful group of professionals all coming together to learn about what is a very, very rich resource and has been a labor of love for our task force, this particular group, for quite some time. So I want to thank them and say well done. And also use it as an opportunity just to thank all of our panelists today, obviously, for spending time. Some of us are coming to you live from the wee hours into their evening, and we're extremely grateful for their thought leadership and their presence. Also want to just remind everybody that EIC has been very, very fortunate to have a fantastic task force working over the period of about 12 months now on a tremendous body of knowledge and resources available to the industry, the Apex Business Recovery Task Force. And what you see in front of you really is a slide that represents a library of really rich and meaningful resources that have been developed and are accessible through our website. And I would encourage you all to revisit them. We really have committed through the work of this task force to ensuring that these resources are seen as living work streams. So we're adding and adapting and evolving these as time goes and we learn more about the things that we're experiencing. So today really is about, again, the business continuity resource. And I think what today represents really is an opportunity for what I'll call extreme learning. The idea of business continuity is all around adaptations and innovations and the way we come together through this collaboration to learn about how we go forward. And ultimately, not only to learn about alternate delivery methods and omni-channel approaches, but to think about how we use what we've learned over the past year to build back stronger and more relevant and more connected to the people that we serve, our workforce and our participants. So with that, again, I just want to thank everyone for joining us. Again, thank our panelists and turn it over to our esteemed moderator, Johnny White. Johnny, thank you for making time for this and thank you for all you do.
Well, thank you very much, Amy, and thank EIC for all that they're doing for the industry. As Amy stated, we have over 1,300 attendees registered for the program and coming from over 30 different countries, which is amazing, and it shows that this is much needed. So today, our plans is to have you be able to walk away and have a good understanding of how you should prepare for future crisis or disruptions, such as what we're going through today. You're going to learn tips on how business rely on in-person events, navigate through a crisis when such traditional in-person event models are not possible. We'll touch on the curated business continuity resources that have been developed by this task force for the event professionals. And then this will all provide a good understanding on how to implement value-based adaptations and innovations. We have an esteemed panelist that include Aloysius Orlando. He's the CEO of CEOS in Singapore and also the president of AIPC. Peggy Fritz is the event service supervisor for Toyota North America. Amy Ledoux, the chief learning and meeting officer for ASA, the Center for Association Leadership. Eric Rosenberg, the CEO of CQTix, and John Whitted, director of SaaS customer experience and operations for CMAC. So we're going to start with John. from CVent. And John, you know, top of mind for all of us when it comes to business continuity for the event sector is when we can anticipate the full return of in-person meetings. John, you know, CVent has a wealth of data about the cadence of meetings, bookings, provides some insight in the area. Can you share with us what you're seeing with respect to the events that are being booked today?
Thanks, Johnny. I think you've come to me with maybe one of the most difficult questions because you're asking me to predict the future. Seeing into the future is really hard, and planner behavior has fundamentally shifted over the last 9 months. But let me show you a couple key data metrics that we track as one of the leaders in the event and hospitality technology industry. This gives us a little bit of a crystal ball. The first is overall RFP volume from hotels. This shows how many planners are soliciting bids for meeting space or for rooms. And since March, we've seen 3 big dips. First, the market just tanked in April. COVID was here, it was real, and as we all know, in-person events were canceled overnight. Second, we saw a small dip over the summer. And third, as you see here, we saw year-over-year volume declines in November and December as case counts rose again. Now, November and December are typically down months, and there's some positive trends that we're seeing too. The first is that highlight the week of October 11th. That was the best week that we had seen since March, and that's pretty incredible. Even better, and while it's not on this chart, the second week of January was even better. So we're seeing record-setting RFP volume increases. That's an indication of demand for us on really a weekly basis. We're seeing that come back very strong in 2021. The second piece of good news is on event dates. So next slide. We've been seeing a lot of short-term planning, planners waiting till the very last minute to commit to a booking. But the good news is that as soon as that vaccine news came out, we saw that shift in sentiment almost overnight. It was an immediate shift in early December to a longer term outlook. And so what this shows us is that volume is down still around 30% in the first half of this year, but it starts ticking up in the second half. It's really strong confidence in 2022. Now, this is global data, so this is all the way around the world, and these trends are largely true no matter where you are. And I think we have 130 countries represented here. Regionally, APAC is definitely ahead of the rest of the world. The UK and EU might be a little bit further behind us here in the States right now. They have some major lockdowns going on. And hotels share this confidence in the second half and in 2022 as well. The rates that they're able to charge in Q1 are down around 30% year on year. They're only off about 10% for the rest of 21, and they're back to normal in 2022. So hotels are feeling bullish about their ability to charge full rates as the year goes on. And so there's something in there for planners as well. Hotels see their price controls coming back, but there's some deals to be had right now and in the second half if you're ready to plan an event. Our Q4 planner sentiment and sourcing report shows that planners are cautiously optimistic about in-person events 6 months from now, and they're getting more optimistic every single day. We're starting to hear that venues are filling up in the second half. There might even be a rush and an overflow into secondary markets as planners start to become more comfortable committing. And finally, we can see who is booking. So next slide. Corporate bookings make up around 40 to 60% of our RFPs, and they're the ones to watch. They're still low to date, and corporations tend to be overly optimistic and overly cautious about committing employers and resources. Other sectors are reasonably healthy, as you can see here. So we share this and similar data on a monthly basis, and we're really excited about some future collaborative initiatives on industry trends and sentiments with the Events Industry Council. So that's a longer answer to your question, Johnny, but in short, we're seeing planner confidence tied closely to vaccine rollouts. Those differ by region, but we're seeing that reflected in a variety of numbers, really coming back in the second half and hitting its stride again in 2022.
Well, John, that's some really good news. And for the event professionals that are out there, as you just heard, the pendulum is actually swinging back. So it's more of a buyer's market. And we, as event professionals, love that. One quick question, John, before I go to the next panelist. In the data, what size of meetings are we looking at here?
So we're still seeing a little hesitancy on the largest events. Those are the ones that tend to be planned the furthest out. But at the same time, those are ones that around the world have some limitations and regulations on how many people can gather in the same place. And this is where we see a lot of companies going to either hybrid or in some cases, fully virtual events still. And the reach on that is just incredible. You can tap people from all around the world. People don't have to worry about travel expenses or getting to the right place or the right venue. So there really is an incredible reach that's happening right now. But certainly the events that are happening in Q1 and Q2 tends to be the smaller ones right now. Those are the ones where people feel more comfortable about maintaining social distancing and looking forward to maintaining some of those safety regulations we've put in place.
Perfect. Well, you said a word about hybrid, and as we get more into the discussion, a number of the panelists are going to talk about hybrid in terms of bringing back business. So thank you, John. Let's go to the next panelist, Peggy. So you've been involved with the development of 2 APEX guidebooks. First, the Meeting and Events Design Guide, and now the Business Continuity Guide. Can you share with us an overview of this new guidance and how it's in some ways a continuation of the previous resource?
Sure, Johnny, you make a good point that these deliverables build upon one another. So as we walk through this newest release, the Business Continuity Guidebook, and I will be saying BC because there's so much to cover, I'll reference resources in the other releases of the guidebooks. Their interconnectivity really helps to create a holistic path to navigating out of this pandemic disruption and back to live events. So let's dig in. So much to share, so little time. As I highlight things, remember that the guidebook was just released about an hour ago, so you can view it in more detail after the webinar. Let's go ahead and flip. And again, thanks. So in the opening page of each guidebook release, the EIC mission, vision, values, members, and programs are cited. And of course, we include a detailed table of contents. Go ahead and flip. It's our hope that this BC guidebook equips you with tangible and relevant resources and examples that'll support your journey in the near and midterm of any crisis. And on behalf of the BC work group, Amy Ledoux, Chuck Gura, and I want to recognize others that helped shape this and truly elevated this release. Special thanks to our colleagues listed and to the EIC staff. Next. So our guidebook all include the EIC 6 principles for recovery upon which our work focuses. EIC fosters and builds human connections, communities, and sustainable development goals. Then the introduction defines business continuity and emphasizes that a living BC plan is it's a critical asset for any organization. It creates a path to absorb, to navigate, and to change course when faced with disruptors like COVID. Next. So understanding business continuity, this content pulls from the 9th edition of the EIC manual, and it emphasizes that BC plans are dynamic versus being static or reactive. In a short while, I'm excited that our colleague, Eric Rosenberg, is going to educate us on this topic. And let's go ahead and flip. You see the key consideration questions that carry over to the next page. These offer event industry specific questions that are really meant to give you a strong starting point for business continuity discussions with your teams. And then as you look to the right and see the business continuity resources, let's go ahead and flip. There are more on the next page. We're so thankful to the 17 EIC member organizations that share their frameworks and templates and case studies and so forth. They're all focused on managing through crises and providing specific direction on business continuity planning. On the right is a really impressive outcome of a Singaporean collaboration. And in a few moments, my colleague, Aloysius Orlando with Socios is going to speak to the elements of the industry resilience roadmap. And below that, there's a link to the World Health Organization's guidance for BC planning, where they provide usable frameworks and step-by-step guidance. Next. Okay, now we really dig into the stages of recovery. And there are 3 primary phases that we identify that any organization is going to move through: assess, adapt, and accelerate. So the pandemic hit or any kind of crisis hits, and naturally the first thought is, what now? So the first steps in the assess phase are attendee and employee safety, that is duty of care, and the impact on your business. And that's really where, as you look to the right, the value of strategic meetings management shine. Organizations with SMMs probably found it easier to navigate the early days because on-demand access to centralized attendee and event data is available. Those without SMMs may have agency partners that they can lean on for some of the benefits. Take away the 5 wins of SMM and look at the GBTA SMM wheel. We include those to aid in the planning and procurement team's discussions, whether you're thinking about launching an SMM or looking to elevate it and mature the program. Next. So as a result of the pandemic, Betsy Bondurant created a list of 7 new considerations that apply to SMM now that we're looking toward the return to live and hybrid events. And then over on the right side, transparent, consistent, and immediate communication across all stakeholder groups is critical in the assess phase. And this is where we refer to one of our other task force work streams. The destinations work group includes a thorough crisis communication template that's a standalone resource on the EIC task force site. Next. So moving into phase 2, adapt is where we shift to focus on building scalable and reliable systems and teams that'll be the ones that help guide us back to a sustainable path. Embracing the unknown and willingness to really challenge your people, the processes, and the technology are key in the adapt stage. I think most of us find ourselves still working through this stage, but we do look to the 3rd stage, accelerate, where growth and reinventing engagement and collaboration is going to return. Keep in mind that the learnings from assess and adapt will support successful acceleration. And on the lower right, there's a TED Talk link that speaks to leadership in times of crisis, giving excellent insight into productive behaviors. Next. Okay, so now we're going to apply the framework to event organizers. And I want to make mention to our valuable partners across the event ecosystem that the intent for you is to take this information and shape it to fit your needs. And as mentioned a couple minutes ago in the assess phase, risk management and duty of care are paramount here for events in action. So there's a checklist in the blue callout to guide your initial actions. Then, in order to confidently evaluate the viability of future contracted and scheduled events, look at the 7 meeting-specific risk factors that are designed to assist with decisioning. Next. Each phase includes a summary, an orange call out that just points out some of the situations, the expected actions, and hopeful outcomes. Some of the examples of assess in action are on the right side, or start with a Deloitte video on the bottom of this page. And then on the right, we have ASAE and Lincoln Financial who share their experiences and perspectives that are intended to shape your mindset and shape your activities in this assess phase. Thank you. In the adapt phase, finding alternate ways to sustain a total event program is the challenge. We're really, truly embracing the unknown here. Think of the adapt phase as a 3-pronged approach. You want to bring the right mindset, the right skill set, and the right technology. The critical goal is to successfully reach and engage your audiences. So the scale image on the right emphasizes the importance of balance and alignment between your planning and marketing teams. Next. Bring the right tech. This may have been really overwhelming several months ago for many of us. There are so many choices, it can be confusing, and it sure has been a steep learning curve to find the right tech tools. So the blue call out offers some key considerations. And in the frameworks to the right, Cvent demystifies various virtual event types, while Toyota with their SMM agency partner meetings and incentives worldwide identify the technology and production needs based on event complexity. Go ahead. Live events will return. John has some encouraging data to share with us a couple minutes ago. So here is where the other work group guidebooks are really an invaluable assist as you begin navigating a safe and healthy return to hotels, to venues, and engaging event suppliers. As we move through the adapt stage, several EIC member organizations share case studies, resource articles. Go ahead and flip. There are webinars and research around crisis adaptation. With so much shifting in the adapt stage, these resources support the ever-changing environment. Finally, we reach the accelerate phase. And in this section, we focus on the holistic go forward total event program that reflects marketing strategies and supports the return to value to each organization. Virtual and hybrid will remain an important player in our event programs. And in fact, many organizations are experiencing exponential growth, like CVent, whose 4,500 traditional in-person event grew to over 42,000 engaged online participants last summer. So lean into the links in the lower right space. They support accessibility and inclusion in your virtual events. Next. For organizations to excel, the right technology stacks will really drive success. And the chart on the left gives a 360 view of what to consider. As we close on Accelerate, note the summary indications in the orange callout. And then on the right, we thought it would be helpful to share an example of Accelerate outside of the event industry. And Toyota saw over 400% growth in our dealer family's use of an end-to-end online sales and financing tool. SmartPath has really allowed us to recover over the last months, and all we needed to do was some quick redeployment of home office resources to train our dealers to use the tool. Remember, it really is bringing the right mindset, skill set, and technology. Next page. So you'll see some case studies here based on the STAR approach. Go ahead and click to the next page. And they speak to the 3 phases of recovery. Nike, Gap, Toyota, and others realized excellent outcomes from challenging situations. They're intended to help you think differently, creatively, and collaboratively when problem solving. And on the right, in each of the accepted practices guidebooks, we insert the COVID-19 resource sites from our EIC member organizations to offer topic-specific guidance. Next. This resource guide is a compilation of governmental, corporate, and association business continuity frameworks with research tips meant to guide your BC planning. And the virtual meetings discovery checklist, and go ahead and flip, just 2 pages, will be available as a separate call out on EIC site. This checklist is a planning aid to ensure all of the virtual needs are addressed. And let's go to the next page. Really, our entire task force is honored to support the global event industry's reemergence from the pandemic disruption and the return of live events. And so each guidebook that's been released really thoughtfully reflects on our task force values of trust, equity, community, and innovation. Next. And as Amy mentioned, we've got easy access to all previously published guidebooks, individual call-out resources, and on-demand videos available in one location. Johnny, it's a lot. Back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Peggy. That was a lot of information. But I will say you guys did a phenomenal job in putting that together. The way that it's formatted and using the 3 A's, access, adapt, and accelerate, really organized in a way that's easy for the users and the readers. So you actually alluded to Aloysius talking about something here. So Aloysius, an important resource outlined in the manual, was developed by Socios in collaboration with the Singapore Tourism Board and Enterprise Singapore, the Event Industry Resilience Roadmap. One of the objectives in the roadmap is on creating agile business models with a focus on hybridization. Can you tell us more about the IRR with a specific focus on how, as an industry, we can improve our business agility?
Thanks, Johnny. I'd be glad to. Good morning, everyone. Just let me share the slides. Just to check, can you all see this?
We're seeing the presentation mode there.
Switch
to the other screen. You're on that.
Oh dear, okay.
Yeah, you probably have to unshare and then reshare with the screen that has the presentation mode.
Okay, let me just go on with this. This quick, just in the interest of time. So if it's okay, I'm just going to keep it in this mode.
That's fine.
So as we all know that COVID-19 has upended industries and economies with really far-reaching implications for business strategy and value creation. And the operating context of our industry is therefore evolving as a result of new consumption habits, disruptive technologies, new ways of working, revised corporate travel policies, and increased geopolitical and economic uncertainty. So what SASIOS, together with the Singapore Tourism Board and the Enterprise Singapore, has done is to launch this Event Industry Resilience Roadmap. It is an operational guide to help companies and workforce be agile and resilient so that we can reboot business events and later events of all genres in a safe and responsible manner. It has 3 objectives. One is to establish best-in-class standards for implementing the Safe Business Events Framework. Second is to create agile and hybridized business models. And of course, third is to re-engineer training pathways and develop targeted programs for new critical competencies. So what we have is under the Safe Business Events Framework is for event organizers, suppliers, and venues to implement the Safe Business Events Framework. And the IR has detailed checklists based on customer journey and contains the national mandatory requirements and best practices adapted from the global business events ecosystem. It is a national standard underpinned by an industry-led accreditation program, and is to give a mark of assurance to everyone for events staged in Singapore that they meet the necessary requirements for safety, compliance, and well-being in a COVID-19 world. Sorry. The second one has got to do with hybridization. And as we all know that with travel and border restrictions in place, we have to certainly look at events on a hybrid model where we can effectively engage global participants virtually, while local participants are engaged in person with local safe management measures applied. Of course, we all agree that face-to-face events are the most effective when it comes to networking, conducting business, and discovering serendipitous moments. So what the roadmap does is also to look at fairly immediate digital solutions to facilitate contactless engagement and surveillance management, like contact tracing and density management, and how event apps that many organizers typically have dovetail with mandatory national IT solutions, like what we have here in Singapore, the Safe Entry and Trace Together digital platforms. We're also building up critical capabilities in content development and curation across digital, broadcast, and physical platforms, and investing in broadcast studios, green rooms, and digital productions. So while your event is live, virtual or hybrid, content is still king. And what we hope to shed light on is the 3 C's of content that we have to bear in mind to keep audiences engaged. This looks at captivating content, making content cinematic, and of course, content to facilitate collaboration. And the IRR also provides success factors for hybridization, such as community building, digital engagement, and of course, learning opportunities. Now, we are mindful that hybrid models need to make commercial sense and the hybrid attendee experience engaging. So the IRR hopes to help the businesses establish a business model on how to monetize virtual and hybrid event formats as they work hard on formulating the desired cost and revenue structures against managing expectations of face-to-face meetings. While every stakeholder in our future ecosystem will have different needs, factors such as customer centricity, flexibility, convenience, scalability, and sustainability remain integral factors for business success. And collaboration and co-creation are going to be very core central themes in creating customer value and agile business models. So to assess and evolve their business models, the IRR has a proprietary methodology with an online assessment tool for business owners to understand, design, and test their business assumptions in the marketplace. Let me just go to this. So it gives one the ability to stock take where we are today and where you need to be based on your business space. So you're able to use the methodology to get a sense as to what sort of moves and shifts one needs to create in order to create the desired business model. New capabilities, of course, would emerge as a result of the pivoting efforts that we all have gone through. What we've decided to do to take a long-term, long-range look in terms of developing a competency stack model. Just give me a minute.
Yeah, Aloysius,
yeah.
Yeah, there, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having a little bit of a struggle with the mouse here, but just give me a moment. So what we did was to take examples of jobs pre-COVID and examine them against the emerging event formats in COVID. And we worked this together with the Singapore University of Technology and Design. And in our collective research, we've discovered that we can identify new career pathways for the workforce based on the understanding of tomorrow's core capabilities. And what we intend to do, and we have begun launching this, is to work with the institutes of higher learning and enterprises to define a new blueprint for our industry's skills map and design training and development program for workers and management to enhance their repertoire of skills for global competitiveness. So what we are seeing is also the evolving business events industry. It is wide and deep, and one where organizers, venues, and a myriad of service providers interface to create engaging experiential hybrid events. This ecosystem will certainly continue to evolve as enterprises embrace new hybrid platforms and business models, as well as new partnerships and alliances in order to survive and thrive. Now, at the same time, we have to realize that for a post-COVID world, our business has to be ready and responsive in tandem with the state of restoration of air travel for trade, investment, and visitor flows. So as you can see, the ecosystem that we've mapped out continues to evolve as we see the disruptions taking shape and the onboarding of a lot more digital players coming in, even for incumbent players looking at vertical or horizontal integration. So I think it forces us to rethink what should the business models be, how should we plug gaps in expertise, what business space do we need to go after, and thereafter, how do we work together in order to make this happen? Clearly, we cannot operate in a silo in a post-COVID world. It requires not just alliances, partnerships within a particular jurisdiction, but also global partnerships as what we're doing here together with the EIC. And so we all know that our industry is a resilient one. We have been through past crises and we have come out always better. So this crisis, though unprecedented, will be no different. And what SASOS will do is really to continue to work with global associations like the EIC industry members, so that through our collective efforts, we can truly restart events and restore international travel and help our respective economies recover. Thank you very much.
And thank you. And you, very good point at the end in terms of the industry resilience. I mean, we will come back. And we're seeing, as we heard from John earlier, some areas coming back. So let's switch gears here. And have Eric. So Eric, there's a new guidebook this new guidebook includes a section that you helped author on business continuity plan from EIC manual. You wrote this 7 years ago, which is crazy. You wrote this 7 years ago, and we're using it now. And it's an article that was, you wrote an article for Forbes on tips for event professionals on navigating the pandemic. What are some of the key business continuity principles that are evergreen, and what are some practices that you see being specific to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you, Johnny. So I got 7 minutes to make 7 points. So let's get into it. The first one is about transparency. And I want to share a story. Years ago, I still had my corporate event company based in Brussels. I'm having lunch with friends on a Friday, and one of them gets a phone call, and he looked at us. He said, "Give me a glass of wine," because that's okay in Belgium to do that at lunch. And I look at him and said, "Mark, you're not flying?" He said, "No, they're closing the airport." And look outside, blue sky. I said, "Are you kidding?" "No, there's this Icelandic volcano, Eyjafjallajökull. You have all the ashes. The cloud of ashes is going over Europe. And we all remember that it closed down the entire air traffic." Now, we had 5 programs the following week, including an incentive trip to Vietnam. So in terms of transparency, we did 2 things. First, obviously, gathering the team. Split the work, who's taking care of what are the options, what can we do? And second is transparency with the customer. And on the Monday morning, I drove to the customer that was supposed to leave on Wednesday from Charles de Gaulle. I called a partner in Vietnam, and I put myself in the shoes of the customer and said, "Listen, everybody's stressed. Nobody knows where this cloud is going. I don't think you should leave even if the airport is reopening. So forget about it. We postponed. Everything was great." And obviously the relationship with your customer, putting yourself in their shoes was very helpful. So first of all, transparency. Second, review your business model. Guess what? Everybody's business model is broken. Regardless whether it's an association or corporation, a third party, your business model is broken. So look at it, try to see what else can you change, revisit everything. There's a wonderful tool called the Business Model Canvas that Alex Osterwalder and others wrote a few years ago. And it's a tool that actually we use when I was chairing MPI. I know Cisco did it. I know small companies can do it. So revise your business model. Third, risk assessment and management. This is not going away. You're just adding the fact that we are during a pandemic and there will be a post-pandemic world. But I remember Aloysius, we were in a meeting in Brussels. He had to leave early because he was organizing the first F1 Grand Prix in Singapore at night. So talking about risk assessment, look about your business, look at the different risks, what type of disclaimer you have, but more importantly, how can you communicate that? The fourth one, is to find the right mix between online and face-to-face. Online meetings are obviously not gonna go away at all. But I think that what's important is 2 things. First one is to find the right partner to help you execute in terms of AV and production, whether it's online or it's face-to-face. And second, and most importantly, go back to why you're doing this meeting, why your client or your organization is bringing people together. What do they want to achieve? What are the key messages? How are you going to measure the impact? And build the entire event based on those objectives. 5th point, and I'm still on time, so I'm checking that. The 5th point is own your data. If you remember, if you're a fan of soccer, or as we call it back then in Europe, football, there was the Euro 2016. And at the surprise of everybody, Iceland beat the UK team. And so they were moving to the semifinal. And so you had about 10 to 15,000 tickets that were supposed to go and be sold to British fans that needed now to be redirected to Icelandic supporter in 36 hours. If you don't own your data, forget about it. But they owned the data, they knew the IP, where it was coming. And so they reach out to the Icelandic supporter in 36 hours and resold all those tickets, which is why you had 10% of the country in the stadium. But the point is, you need to own your data in everything that you're doing. Sixth point, improve your customer experience. This is a great moment to revise your entire customer experience, all the different touch points that you have, and focus on two things, especially during the pandemic and just after. First, everybody wants mobile. You need to be able to deliver a mobile experience, from the ticketing to the registration, to the attendance, to the access control, everything. You have to be able to deliver a mobile experience to your customer. And second, you need to be able as well to include the physical distancing. You're going to see it during the Super Bowl now in Tampa. There's a reduced number of tickets. They're going to 40,000, I think. It's insane. But the point is because it's physical distancing. So you need to be able to take your event, to take all the structure of it and see how many people can you get and how many people can safely go to that event. And last but certainly not least, you need to learn to lead remote teams. As some of you know, I have a podcast called The Business of Meetings, and David Burkus was a guest recently, and David wrote a book called Lead from Anywhere. I was speaking with my own team here at CQTX in Americas, and they were all telling me, you know, we enjoyed this year for being more with the family, seeing our kids growing. Not everybody is looking looking forward to going back full-time in the office. So how are you going to maintain your culture? How are you going to motivate the team? How are you going to ensure that productivity is there with remote team and to ensure the business continuity? And those are the 7 points that I wanted to make now, Johnny, and I still have 40 seconds left.
Well, very good, Eric, and great 7 points there. And you brought up some very good points there in reference to that last one, you know, leading remote teams. I think that's unfortunate, well, not fortunate or unfortunate, the wave of the future. Because as I look at, you know, our business model, we're looking at more of a remote access, and that actually provides additional opportunities because you have, you know, different staff members working for you from all over the world rather than just in your region. So it's some opportunities there.
Thank you.
All right, so last panelist, Amy. So associations serve such an important role in our communities, and many of them rely on revenues from their events. As we know, some of organizations, 50, 60, 70% of their revenue is coming from the events. Can you share with us some of the innovations that the associations are implementing? And can you share with us a bit about the ASAE Foresight Works research that is highlighting in the guidebook on drivers of change that need to be considered as part of business continuity planning?
Yes, I would be happy to, and happy to talk about associations, and thanks to all my fellow panelists and contributors to this guidebook. I think we've heard a lot of good things today, starting with John, kind of the forecast, very optimistic, and just the idea of having a guidebook that helps us kind of think through this now accelerate phase of all the things that we just went through this last year, right? How do we operationalize them in our organizations? Where were our gaps? And Johnny, you mentioned with associations and a lot of other organizations, I think this pandemic really highlighted where our business models were weak. And as Eric said, if you're not re-looking at your business model, everybody's business model and business plan is probably broken. If it isn't, we'd like to hear from you. And maybe you took some of the recommendations from Eric, or perhaps you looked at our Foresight Works and had some good insight and did some good planning. But I don't think anybody with any planning was prepared for this pandemic. I mean, we've certainly had crises before, but they haven't been so broad and affecting every aspect of our industry and affecting, really pressure testing every aspect. And especially with associations, you mentioned kind of the percentage that organizations rely on revenue from face-to-face meetings. I had heard from CEOs like yourself, as high as 90% of an organization's net revenue to the organization being from their annual meeting. So I think it kind of highlights to an association where they need to diversify and where they really need to kind of see what their members, what their true purpose is. Because as Eric said, if you have a good sense of what your true purpose is, you have more clarity and understanding from your members' relevance. And I think just as EIC put this Apex COVID Recovery Task Force together with this pandemic, organizations have been very generous to give their input to find solutions so we can get back to business and doing face-to-face meetings, but in the meantime, and learning from each other. As I said in the beginning, in previous conversations, we were really building the plane while we were flying it. So the association community and what associations do is really convene members of its organization, right? And really during this pandemic, organizations needed to find out from their constituents, what were they doing to kind of modify their business model? And I think associations did exactly that. We certainly know from just some of the conversation today that organizations were able to adapt their learning and education to virtual. And as we got into the fall, many organizations like ICA and MPI, some of our EIC members, were able to deliver both face-to-face events and have the virtual aspect, so our hybrid or omni-channel events. But associations also adapted in other areas, their membership area, certification, seeing where their members were struggling. If you're the National Restaurant Association with restaurants being closed, do you think it would be easy for restaurants to pay their membership dues? It wasn't. So organizations needed to, adapt their membership model and really look at how they could help their members in delaying membership renewal, delaying certification timelines, and then going back and seeing how they could address as they were looking forward. And I think through this guidebook, we've been given a great framework, and there's multiple frameworks through some of the examples, not only the one of the adapt, the access, adapt, and accelerate that Peggy so nicely went through. And I think many of us have gone through we've assessed the needs, our organizations have adapted. And now in the accelerate phase, how are we going to take the things that we have done to serve the members' needs, and many of them for free, to provide a sustainable business model? And that's what we're looking at, right? We're really looking at the future. How can we grow our organizations? How can we keep the relevance of our associations? And how can we sustain that growth? So I think that is the accelerate, and where we need to really look at these frameworks. We've been so busy responding to the pandemic and responding to our members' needs. Now, how do we operationalize the things that we did really well and really get rid of the things that are not valuable to our members? You know, so many of our face-to-face meetings, the revenue that we get support a lot of things that are not revenue producers, and that's okay if that leads back to the purpose of the organization. But I do think it's helped organizations reevaluate and relook at their purpose and what are their core deliverables. And I think that's the associations moving forward, and those that are going to be successful are certainly doing that. And Johnny, you mentioned Foresight Works, and I wish perhaps I had even looked at some of the future thinking and some of the things that are included in that Foresight Works, which is research that is really future focused for associations. So it includes, it's really an environmental scanning, and it includes, we call them drivers of change. What are the things that are going to drive change within associations, and how do we address them as an organization, and how do we prepare for them, right? So that's the crystal ball. We all wish we had a crystal ball, but certainly, as Amy talks about these guidebooks, this is a living work stream. Foresight Works is a living work stream. It's iterative. In 2019, we led the research with 41 drivers of change. So identifying drivers of change and then providing action briefs that examine the implications to an association and how your organization should walk through addressing those specific elements. And you know, year after year. So we now have 50 drivers of change. Some of those actually go away. And as you can imagine with this last year, there's going to be a lot of new ones as we come out with some new drivers of change for this year. But they're in really like 6 thematic areas, which makes sense if you're looking at an association and what are important things and deliverables that we deliver to our association members. Their content, learning, and knowledge are one of the things that we deliver to our members. Data and technology, how we utilize that technology and the data we gather, and demographics and the changing demographics of our membership, economic conditions. I mean, oh my gosh, society and politics, and then workforce and workplace. And in looking at the drivers of change, and Johnny, you're so familiar with this because you worked on that work group, but really the reskilling of our staff and the workforce to be able to deliver what our members need now. And so a lot of these, of course, is a framework and tools that we can all use to kind of help move our organizations forward and plan for the future. And I know how that is, because it's like planning for the future. I'm barely getting through each week, especially when we were going through this crisis, right? And so how awesome to kind of convene this industry to provide these guidebooks and resources, and to kind of have the sharing that we're doing here today and throughout this last year to learn from each other so that we can do and deliver better. So I think we're a work in progress for sure. And I'm excited to start applying some of the tools that and the frameworks that we've outlined for our own meetings and events, because you can certainly have a business continuity plan for your organization, but having one specific to meetings and events, which are so critical to associations and their economic health. So anyway, exciting times.
Well, thank you very much, Amy. And you touched on a lot of good points there. You went back to the framework of those 3 A's and how it's helping organizations. You have to adapt and so forth. So we're coming to the end here, and it looks like, as I've been watching the chat, I didn't see many questions. I think we've been answering them as we have been going. So I'm going to ask each of you, and I'm only giving you about a minute, maybe a little more than that, to tell me what you think. How we can build back stronger. And I'll start with pretty much the same order. So John, you're wasting your minute by not getting a mute.
I'm wasting my minute. But I think at the end of the day, I'm really excited about hybrid events. They're going to bring the impact and relationship building of in-person events together with the reach and the production quality of virtual events. We're sitting here on this webinar, 130 countries, more than 1,000 people. Just the reach is absolutely incredible. And what we've seen is about 93% of planners are at least open to the idea of virtual events. 66% are already planning one. And so that reach, that democratization of events is really incredible. And that's the acceleration phase that we're talking about in the business continuity white paper. It's such an incredible opportunity to tap into new markets, members, customers, revenue, whatever the case may be. And so this is a big change. I don't think we're ever going to go back to normal, quote unquote, but instead we're really looking at what could be the golden age of events with more ways to engage than ever before. And so in the spirit of business continuity, the most successful organizations are going to be one that charge into that change with open arms and be agile to grow in the new world. And that's really exciting to me.
Perfect. Peggy?
John, you're spot on, but I'm going to go back to the basics and really focus on people. I just had a chat exchange on this webinar with someone about how closely knit the community is. And it got me thinking about a New Year's address that our global CEO, Akio Toyoda, delivered. And he challenged team members with a call to action to renew our commitment to our cultural pillars. At Toyota, it's respect for people and continuous improvement. And he humbly admitted, and I think that as we look at what, pre-pandemic months and maybe even years, sometimes we place the numbers over the people. So he wants us to get back to the focus on people. And it's not just the Toyota team members, it's you, our customers who drive Toyotas, it's our supplier partners, it's our dealer family and all of that. That's really what supports our vision of mobility for all. So I kind of pull that thread through to the global event industry. And as we, as the event pace picks up, and we get a chance to rebuild and re-engage our teams, we have to be really unwavering in tapping into the immense talent and the diversity across our industry and our people. It's really the engine to innovation and to creativity. And I think our people drive the sustainability, the progress, and ultimately our collective success.
Perfect. Aloysius?
Yeah, I think we not just need to build back better, but to build forward. And I think we're not going to go back to a pre-COVID level for the simple reason that any safe return of events and travel will depend on all of us being safe. And as you can imagine, with the vaccines going on now, and with the virus becoming more and more potent, and we do not know what the virus will evolve, I think we need to be in a pause and go mode and be prepared when if we need to go into lockdowns or circuit breakers. How do we then manage business continuity? And therefore, hybridization is going to be key. It's going to provide us with a default that we need to work in. And if events do not have a digital platform, it's going to be very tough for us to keep the revenues coming, to keep costs going, and to keep the purpose of events, which is really to bring people together, to foster exchange, idea generate. And I think that's something we need to factor in as the new normal. We also have to bear in mind that the vaccine is not necessarily the panacea. It is part of an overall suite of efforts that we need to embrace, from whether it's wearing masks during sanitizing, social distancing, and the like. This is part and parcel until the virus is well contained. And scientists have already alerted to us and warned us that there will be, in fact, new virus coming up. It seems to be like a doom and gloom situation, but I think that's something where we need to bear in mind and not rest on our laurels. And therefore, global collaboration is going to be key, as what we're doing today, exchanging notes, looking at ideas, working together, because at the end of the day, we are only safe when all of us are safe.
Thank you. And you bring up a good point. We have to rely on our scientists. Eric?
Thank you, Johnny. I remember what Winston Churchill said, when you go through hell, keep walking. And I think we're still in the keep walking phase. And that's the time now to come back stronger, to look at what needs to be done. How can we better prepare? I mentioned mobile, I mentioned social distancing, but all those tools to get ready for when we start. And, at the end of the day, social media kept showing me what I did the last year, the conference I've been to, the concert I've been to, the theater I've been to, the museum I've been to. We are all craving about that. So I'm very bullish from the moment that we start again, but that's really the moment to get ready for that and to keep on revising everything we do.
Thank you, Eric. Can you bring up a good point, a quote that I heard? It's great to look at history, but it's harder to live through history. And we're actually living through this history right now. Amy.
Thanks, Johnny.
Oh, no, not Amy
sorry,
Calvert.
not
Amy
you
Ledoux,
yet,
and then
Amy.
Oh, I thought you wrapped already, Abe.
I'm giving Amy Ledoux 30
He's
seconds.
giving me 30 seconds. So I say ditto to what my colleagues have said, but I also think what's going to keep moving us forward is really collaborating, and especially with associations, we are conveners and we have to continually share and help each other so we can be on the other side of this. And just a great quote from Duncan Wardle, who was one of our keynote speakers for our virtual, that was the head of innovation for Disney. He said that we are really moving from a profit-driven economy to a purpose-driven economy. And I think all of us really have to look at what our purpose is, and it's really going to help us give us more clarity in our roles with each of our organizations. So thanks. Now to you, Amy.
Well, thank you all.
Back to Donnie, actually.
Thank you all. It's really, really good points. And I know this is going to go very far for all the attendees that were able to participate. So again, thank you for being here. Now I'm going to pass it back over to Amy Calvert to close us out.
So wonderful job to our panelists. I just want to start off by thanking you all for being present today and all the work that went into preparing for this really insightful conversation. And really, I think Aloysius and Beta and our friends at Sassios, thank you for spending time and your commitment to this idea of collaboration. I think, as we've said, we have an opportunity not only to live our purpose, but to live our values and to really be present in these partnerships and these collaborations that we've built over time. And I think that will ultimately, be the beacon that leads us forward. I think the spirit of community that's represented by, over 1,300 professionals coming together today to have a conversation and talk about what's next and to provide a moment of inspiration for those that are really needing it as we think about how we adapt and innovate and transform is really essential to what this task force ultimately has been all about, right? The coming together and the sharing of knowledge, the aggregation of resources so that we can best serve our workforce. And so I'm so grateful and thankful to all of you and to our task force, and of course to all the great work that our member organizations are doing and our partner organizations are doing across the globe to serve our industry. We will be, because as you have seen, this is such a rich resource, we will be following up and hosting independent conversations in different time zones to continue the dialogue and to learn more from our various stakeholder groups about how we can add and evolve this particular resource as we go forward in time. But I just want to leave you all with this notion that I'm really humbled and grateful by all that you do, and really looking forward to spending more time as we start to think about what's next and how we do really look at building back not only stronger, but more committed to creating purposeful and meaningful experiences that ensure our relevance into the future. So with that, I will say thank you. Look for more information from this fantastic group as we go forward in 21. Take good care and be well.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.